What's up, guys? I'm Lee Williamson, and today I'm going to cover more on what I previously covered on iPi Soft. More troubleshooting questions about floating feet. Previously, I covered maybe the height needed to be higher or lower for the camera, but I've found out that there are settings inside of iPi that are better suited to resolving that problem. So I'm going to be covering that, and then I'm going to be taking the footage into Cinema 4D to show you how to create the perfect loop once you've recorded your motion capture. So without further ado, let's dig in. Right, so I've opened up iPi Studio, and I'm going to take a walking man, which is a video of me that I recorded with iPi Recorder. Don't worry too much about your high setting yet. We can adjust this inside the program too. So we're just going to say finish on there. And we're going to drag in a character that I made, downloaded from Mixamo. And just say auto. And then we can just go to tracking. Use fast tracking algorithm. Now, when you're just making sure that the character's feet are touching the ground correctly on the plane, we use fast track algorithm to forward track just because it tracks a lot faster. And once we're happy with our character's pose, then we can turn fast track algorithm off and we can press refine track. But for now, let's just have fast track algorithm ticked. So if we have our character in a T-pose, okay, so he's in a T-pose over there. And what we're going to do is we're going to check on, by the way, I am orbiting around the camera with my right click on my mouse. You notice the heels are slightly raised. So we have two ways we can resolve this. By the way, I can pan with my left mouse and rotate with my right. Is if you keep orbiting until your plane is flat. Okay, just like there. You notice a lot of these, the point data is below the horizon line. So what we want to do is we want to raise that a little bit up. So if we go into our scene, we have our ground height tuning, and we can just bring this up a bit. Like that. And press recenter coordinates on character. And then go back to our actor and refit pose. And then the next thing we can do is we can also go to your character height. Now, one thing I want to do before I show that is if we go into view and we go into pose mismatch, we have a number here in a very low 0.0142. And every single time that number, if you can get the number higher, the matching with the feet to the plane will be closer to yours. But that's not always 100% correct. So just use this as a really rough guide. So if you notice when I press plus on making my character taller, plus, that number gets higher. And if I decrease the value, decreasing gets to 0.14, which is good. That's gone a little bit lower down. There's 417. That's 417. So that, yeah. So that's numbers about the highest it can be at the moment. And then press refit pose. And okay, it hasn't quite worked, but maybe if we keep adding extra to that and press refit pose, we just make the character slightly taller. It should eventually flatten out the feet so that it's not on its tippy toes, but it's on its feet are fully on the floor without their heels being in the air. And now our character is more closer to what it should look like. Now, if we add too much height and we keep going, eventually this character will be bent over forward. Or if we make it too short, it'll be bent over backwards. So just bear that in mind. If you add too much, be quite gentle with your height settings. You start adding it in. I would recommend not using the slider, but rather the plus and minus buttons on the fine tune height. So we can go back to our view and we can turn off the pose match. I can turn off the video. I can turn off if you're watching my mouth, the depth cloud mouse. And now we've just got our characters over here. And I can go to the very beginning, go to my tracking. And since I know that that should work, I'll turn fast track algorithm off and press forward track. I think that should work. I mean, I might have just left fast track algorithm on because it might need another reject, but we'll just check. And this isn't something I really covered correctly in my previous tutorial. In my previous tutorial, I thought that the toes and the heel were affected by the height of the camera, which originally I made the camera too high or too low. That does need to be taken into account. I mean, the camera should be about, I think it's about, is it 0.8 meters? It's almost like, is that chest height? Okay, so let's just check it out. Okay, press play. Actually, let's just turn it around so we can actually see how the character is touching the plane. Okay, that's pretty decent. So, what I'm going to do next is, let me just save this. Let's just call this Walking Man, because I'm really happy with that setting. Now, one thing that's probably worth showing is you can have more than one take on your system. Now, as you noticed, when you're recording an iPi, you always have to do a T-pose in the beginning so that your character model matches up with a point data, whatever you call it, cloud information. And the other thing I didn't realize is that if you decide to do a pose and you act it out, and then you want to do another action, you can just do another T-pose during your video. And what will actually happen is it'll automatically add another take to your timeline. And then, you can just right click on your takes and export the animations or the takes out individually, which is incredibly useful. So if you do more than one T-pose, you can do more than one take. Also, you can add takes to this. So, if I right click and actually I don't have another take in there, so I can just add another take and I can say I want this take to be, a part of this animation. Maybe it was somewhere at the end or a part of that take that I preferred. I can use that take. So you can export out more than one take. So if I just delete that take, because I'm not going to really need it. And since I'm already happy with that bit, I'm just going to scroll up to here and crop the region of interest and my take up to there. And then the walk, I'll just leave the whole walk on here because I can always cut that off in Cinema 4D. As I'd like to show you some really cool things in Cinema 4D you can do with that. So let's just save that again. Now the next thing is, whenever you are working through these settings, you always work from top to bottom, not bottom to top. So once you've tracked, and then you can start to work with things like jitter removal and trajectory filter and you name it. You're kind of setting these settings, then you're tracking, and then you're working with these from the bottom. Now, trajectory filter and jitter removal are kind of the same. This, if you had to pull this up really high, smooths out the motion. So watch what happens. It takes out the jitteriness out of my animation. And watch when I pull it really low. I bring it to the top and I play it. You've still got that wobbliness on your trajectory. So that kind of does it on the fly, but jitter removal does it permanently. So if you do use jitter removal and you weren't happy with it, you would need to retrack your footage again. So usually you can leave this filter on about 1 or 2. Don't take too much out of it, because what it does is you just want to take the wobbliness out of your animation, but it might start to remove bends where the knees bend or the toes and heels bend in the right places. So you don't want to smooth out too much of that. Now you've also got jitter removal, which does the same thing, except it does it to specific limbs. So if you go into your options and say, I'm very happy with the way the legs are working, so I'm going to keep the legs unjittered. So I'm going to put them down to about 0. Or actually, no, let's just put them on 1. We want just a little bit of smoothing. And then we are going to leave the rest of the body on 2. In fact, let's just bring these to 0 so that we don't affect the left and right at all, because I want as much of that bend in the feet. Even if they wobble a little bit, it doesn't matter, because the character is going to walk and you're not going to really seem stationary. So this is going to smooth out the torso, the left arm and the right arm, and the head. I'm going to say OK, and then press jitter removal. And let's see what happens. Okay, it seems okay. What I probably would want to bear in mind is, before I go to my jitter removal, is maybe I can refine my forward track. So this is a much cleaner track of your forward track. They're not that different. In fact, it's more your use fast tracking algorithm that makes the difference. If you uncheck that, it does a nice smooth track. As I mentioned, using fast tracking algorithm is only for when you're first making sure that the feet are flat to the plane. So that's a lot better already. So let's have a look at that. Yeah, that's much smoother. And if you're not happy with this track, you can also scrub to the beginning, to the end, and press refine backwards. So sometimes if you refine forward and backwards, you get a cleaner track. But I think we've achieved a fairly clean track here. Okay, so I've got a fairly slow walk going on. And let's go back to that jitter removal. Because I've retracked, I'm going to need to clean that up. Let's move that leg and right leg up by 1. So we just got a smoothness of about 1, and everything else is 2. And most of the time, if you just keep them all 2, it's actually pretty decent straight out of the box. Yeah, that's pretty decent. Right, so there we have our walk cycle. So we can either right click over here on a take and export animation, or we can do it straight out of here and export animation. Either way, I'll just do it on the take. So export animation and call it, because it's sort of from the take, it's walking man take. So okay, and we'll export that out. So I'm going to open up Cinema 4D now. And I'm going to drag in my walkie man take onto Cinema 4D. Don't worry about these, I think they're all right as they are. Okay, let me zoom out. Let's see what it looks like. Oh man, I look like I'm constipated when I'm walking. I'm sure if you're a better actor than I am, your walk would be fine. To be honest, when I was walking, I was just concerned that I'd walk too fast to my camera and it would go off view. Bear in mind, if you're going to do a walk cycle, you don't want to walk on the spot. You actually want to walk forward, because I think it's more realistic movement of your body than actually walking on the spot, unless of course you have some kind of a exercise machine. What are those running jogging machines called? Okay, that's cool. So the first thing we're going to do is I don't want to have the character moving from here to there. I would like to manually put that in myself. So what would that be? If I click on my Mixamo hips, this is where all my animation is. I can press Shift F3 and untwirl that, and that should be under my positions. Now if we untwirl X, Y, and Z, there should be one that looks like a fairly linear movement, and it's that one. It should be going at a constant rate, the walking speed. So that, I'm assuming, is the walk cycle. So we can delete that out there. And now we have our character walking on the spot. Cool. Now I want to loop this animation perfectly, but my walk cycle has to have a perfect start and end point. And obviously I've walked and taken 4 steps, so my first step might not look very similar to my third step. So I'm going to show you how to resolve that. The first thing we can do is let's just add a floor plane here. And we can add a light. And I'm just going to set that light to ambient illumination. So I'm just flattening out the color so I can actually see the character on the floor. Cool. So there we got our character walking. Now the next step is I want to click on my rig, go to Animate, and go to Add Motion Clip. Don't even bother naming it right now because I'm gonna bake it down to keyframes and then do it again. And I'm gonna find a key pose. Now, if you know anything about key poses in character animation, there are definite standstill positions in between a motion, which are quite definable by the walk cycle. So I want to find maybe one where the foot is up like that and down like that. And then find another version where it's like that again. And there it is. So, or it could be this passing pose where one foot is flat and one foot is up. In fact, I'm actually liking that one a lot more. So let's see. Let's choose that. And I'm just going to take a bunch of squares. Turn my light off for now. And I'm going to put a square over there. Make that square a lot smaller. This is just for me to have as a guide to know where those feet are. Okay. And right. Okay, cool. So if we press Shift F3 and we go into this tab here, motion mode, we would have seen the motion clip that I've added. So where are we now? I've done this so perfectly and now I got missed it. Well done, Lee. It was something on '79. 79 it is. Okay, so if we right click on here and we go to cut and connect, I'm going to cut it over there. And then right click again and click on that cut click so it's unselected and delete that. And just move this forward. So we've got that foot up and that foot back. So it's going to walk and walk. No, I'm not happy with that. Let's delete these again. I'm going to find a better position. And let's see. a good passing pose. So that was 54. Okay, 54. I'm going to cut, connect over there, boom, and delete that. Now we've got to find another one. Put that foot there. Okay, tiptoe, follow that foot back. And I think that's about right. And cut and connect. There. And get rid of that. Now let's just see if this does work. Okay, so now we have a full walk cycle. And if you click on your actual animation over here, you should have loops over there. So we should just set that to 10. And watch the character walking. Okay, that's actually pretty decent actually. I'm not even sure if I need to do what I was going to show you. But you know, for example's sake, let's just do it anyway. Because you might not get it as a perfect cut as me. If we, let's just zoom out of here, zooming out with the 2 key, and I'm going to click back on here and I'm going to change my loops to 0. Zoom back in again. Sorry about that. And now I'm going to duplicate this by holding Control Shift and Alt together. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the very beginning of my animation, right? This is a duplicate copy, by the way. Let's go nice and close in. Go to the second frame of it, right click and cut and connect. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut off. So we only have one keyframe here. And then we're going to delete that. And we have one keyframe of the start position of the walk cycle. And we're just going to drag that out. So now it should be one very stationary slow motion thing going on here. So what we can do, if we just zoom out to it quite a lot and make that incredibly big, it should almost appear as if that's not moving, or at least it's going incredibly slow into that position. Make it humongous. I have covered this in a previous tutorial, but I think I've made a bit of a mistake. Deleting that and extending that. Bear with me on here. Okay. So this is my animation, and this is that little first frame. That's nice and slow. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to take that first frame and I want to blend it with the last frame, because that last frame might not be identical to the first frame. So we want that position to be the same. So I can drag this over the top. And what that does is it frame blends that last keyframe with the first frame. And then if I click on the easing for both of them, I'm going to change that to linear. So if you look there, we don't want any easing on it, the blending. We just want it to have perfectly go out. And then we can just take the whole lot and we can go to, where is it now? Motion system and convert layer to keyframe animation. So now we've got all these baked keyframes, and I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to go into here and I'm going to choose add motion clip, and I'm going to choose walking. I'm going to call him walking man. Walking man. Cool. Shift F3 back to my timeline. Go to motion mode, and we should have our walking man there. Let's get rid of the previous one. Okay. And right where it stops. Scrub until where it stops, about there. Right click and cut. And then get rid of it. Boom. Okay, now we should have a perfect walk cycle. Now, the front and the back should match each other perfectly, I should hope. And we can change our loops. So we click on this and we change our loops to, heck, let's just say 100. 100 will be fine. And there we go, walking. So now I mentioned that I wanted to take out the character walking in the Z position. So if I select the whole entire rig, press Alt G and call this walking man, I can go into my coordinates and I think it was Z. Yeah, Z. Yeah, Z is working good with me. Probably also just want to, that's fine, leave it like that, it's fine. And I can drop a keyframe down on Z, just drag it forward anyway, it's fine. We'll drag it on 20. And we'll move it forward a little bit and drop a keyframe. So we have our character moving forward, going a little bit too fast, but that's fine. Right click on this radio button with the Z position that we recorded, and you can go to show F curve, or you can just go Shift F3, go to keyframes. Actually, no, that would have been an easier way to show you. Just right click, animation, show F curve, and this is the walk. So we can select both these keys, right click it and change it to linear spline. So now it's going at a constant movement, not from slow to fast and then back to slow. And there we got it. And we don't want him just to stop walking there, we want him to keep going. So if we have the Z position selected, we can change the after position to continue. And if you look on the timeline now, you can see this line going all the way down, this diagonal line, which means it's going to keep moving. And let's just watch our character walk. Press space bar and he's walking. Really funny. So what if we could do two things? We can make the keyframe shorter. It's too fast. Make it a little longer, maybe 30. Wow, it's really walking slow. Yeah, about 35. And there is a version of me walking at the speed of 35 keyframes. A joke. And then, who knows, maybe we would like to have this character walking to a square. So let's just take a square. Just all characters walk to squares. and a couple of obstacles around it. So maybe we can have a triangle and a circle. Okay. Just for a little bit of depth. And if we add that camera, if you see the camera right now, we can maybe want it to be through the eyes of the guy. So we can drop down our joints, go through the spine until we find inside the neck is the head. And let's put the camera inside the head. Boom. And then reset our PSR. And that should clamp the camera inside of his head. Now if you turn the camera on, you'll be looking inside of his face. So we may need to just turn the camera around. So I'm going to turn it around 180 degrees and then just move it forward past his head, because this is where it's seeing through, and then move it a little bit up higher where his eyes are. And now when we look through the camera, we have this character walking, making you incredibly motion sick. Now, humans' eyes don't work that way. I think they kind of work a little bit like they have their own form of tracking. So if we go onto our camera and we can add a target tag, and the target tag will be this cube, because this guy's probably looking at the cube as he's walking, so his eyes will be a little bit more focused, and that way we get the nice walking and we don't wobble around feeling motion sick with the walk cycle. So that'd be a great way to walk to the object. Another useful thing is, now that we have positioned the camera in the right place, maybe we decide we don't want it attached to the head, so we can pull it out and then press play, and our character should just walk right past on its way to the cube. Looking highly constipated. Maybe you can walk a lot better than me. Right, so I hope you guys enjoyed that tutorial. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe, as I very much appreciate it. In my following tutorials, I'll be covering these bad boys right here. I have gotten two Azure Microsoft connected cameras, and once I figured out how to set them up, I'm going to show you how to record with two cameras inside of iPi. Should be awesome, should be fun. Hopefully I'll take out all the teething painful work so you guys can enjoy the benefits of seeing how to set up. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Bye.